Principle-centered leadership. Principle-centered leadership is a leadership theory developed and published by Steven Covey in 1992. This theory and practice of leadership emphasizes leading through timeless, universal principles such as integrity, accountability, compassion, fairness, and trust. Covey's position is that effective leadership stems from aligning personal and professional actions with these core principles, fostering trust and credibility. This inside-out approach begins with self-leadership, requiring individuals to cultivate character and competence before attempting to influence others. Covey advocates for a values-driven framework of leadership that builds authentic relationships and sustainable success. Following are some key ideas concerning principle-centered leadership. 1. Focus on others. Principle-centered leaders prioritize the needs and well-being of their team members above their own personal gain. 2. Empowerment. They empower their team members by giving them autonomy, encouraging their growth, and providing them with the resources and support they need to succeed. 3. Ethical conduct. Principle-centered leadership is grounded in ethical behavior and conduct, and a commitment to doing what is right. This includes even when you have been treated unethically or morally wrong. 4. Long-term perspective. Principle-centered leaders focus on building long-term relationships and creating a sustainable and ethical organization. In a work environment like this, team members will always give their best. In essence, principle-centered leadership is built upon putting others first, and using one's leadership position to empower those in your area of leadership influence. It is a philosophy and mindset that emphasizes the importance of humility, empathy, and service in leadership. In a world that is constantly evolving, where challenges grow more complex and the pace of change feels relentless, the need for leaders who are anchored in timeless principles has never been greater. Principle-centered leadership is foundational to authentic leadership. It is important to remember that leadership is not about titles, positions, or the size of one's office. It is not about commanding authority or wielding power. Principle-centered leadership is the pinnacle or summit of authenticity that team members will always respect. Authentic, principle-centered leadership is about influence, service, and character. It is about standing firm in what is right, even when it is difficult, which inspires others to do the same. Our definition of a principle at Ethnos Leadership is a universal law that is true in any context, situation, environment, or organization. We also refer to a principle as truth that transforms. The statement, "Every action has an equal and opposite reaction," is a universal law, often referred to as Newton's third law of motion in physics. While the equal and opposite may not always be immediately apparent, the principle reminds us that our actions have a profound impact on the world around us, and that by choosing to act with credibility and intentionality, we can create a more positive and fulfilling reality for ourselves and those that we lead. As stated earlier, principle-centered leadership is built on a foundation of universal truths. Truth like honesty, fairness, respect, accountability, and compassion that team members and leaders in any organization can relate to. These principles are unshakable, and they do not bend to trends or convenience. Leaders who anchor themselves in principle-centered leadership become beacons of trust and stability in any and every organization. Without principles or truth that transforms, leadership becomes rudderless. Like a ship adrift at sea, decisions are made based on expediency rather than ethics. Relationships become transactional rather than transformational. And progress becomes hollow, void of meaning or sustainability. But when leaders embrace principles, truth that transforms as their compass, they create environments where people feel valued and empowered. Principle-centered leaders foster trust that strengthens teams, and others within the organization will notice the difference. These are leaders that inspire others not just to follow them, but to rise alongside them. Principle-centered leaders understand that true success is measured by the positive impact they leave behind, the lives they touch and transform, the opportunities they create, and the legacy they build. History has shown us countless examples of principle-centered leaders who have changed the world, not because they sought power but because they sought purpose. As a world changer, think of Mahatma Gandhi's unwavering commitment to nonviolence. As a world changer, consider Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s fight for justice, through love and peace. As a world changer, Mother Teresa's dedication to serving the poor and marginalized can never be forgotten. Her leadership was driven by compassion, empathy, and a deep commitment to alleviating suffering. These leaders, though from different walks of life, shared a common thread. Their leadership was grounded in strong ethical principles and a commitment to serving others. They inspired others through their actions and demonstrated the power of principle-centered leadership, creating positive change in their time, and in the world in which they lived. This type of leader reminds us that principles are not just ideals, they are forces of transformation that can change the times, and the world in which we live. What makes principle-centered leadership so powerful is its ripple effect. When we lead with principles or truth that transforms, we impact everyone around us, creating cultures where integrity becomes contagious, and excellence becomes the standard. It does not matter if you lead a team of 10 or 10,000, embracing the practice of principle-centered leadership makes us, and our organizations better. A principle-centered leader's aim is to hold themselves accountable to the highest standards of integrity, and to lead with empathy, humility, and vision. It is important that we constantly remind ourselves that leadership is not just reserved for CEOs or politicians. It belongs to every member of the team, or simply, leadership belongs to all of us. Principle-centered leadership is not just an ideal, it can become a powerful force for change and transformation, increasing effectiveness and efficiency, both personally and organizationally. A principle-centered leader simply focuses on truth that can always be trusted. Where truth is discovered, there is believability and credibility in operation. If we learn how to read the principles, we won't get lost, confused or fooled by conflicting voices and contrary values of others. Principles, or truth that transforms, are self-evident and self-validating. They do not change or shift. They are constant and consistent. Principles help us to navigate the oceans of various life experiences, and our unique organizations or work environments. Principles surface in the form of values, ideas and norms that empower and potentially inspire those that we lead. They further highlight the importance of aligning behaviors with principles to inspire trust, clarify purpose, and achieve long-term goals. By integrating body, mind, heart, and spirit, representing discipline, vision, passion, and conscience, leaders can create meaningful change. We believe at Ethnos Leadership, meaningful change is actualized in any organization or work environment by practicing the Ethnos equation of purposeful relationships and authentic accountability that becomes a leader's professional responsibility. This is truth that transforms. In conclusion, principle-centered leaders aim to consistently operate in truth that transforms. It was Winston Churchill that once stated, "The truth is incontrovertible. Malice may attack it, ignorance may deride it, but in the end, there it is." Where principles or truth are present, there will always be transformation that makes us better. Principle-centered leadership.